Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I got a fantastic night's sleep. I went to bed early last night, well, early for me, which is like 2 a.m. and got my vlog done early, and then I listened to my audiobook. I'm listening to Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and it's fantastic. I can't believe I've waited this long to read it. It's just beautifully written. So if you're looking for, I don't know much about what's gonna happen because I'm only like 2 hours into the audiobook, but I've heard such fantastic things about it. So if you're looking for like a beautiful book to read during the spring, I definitely think this is a good suggestion. But I wanted to get on here today. I'm preparing for going to Phoenix tomorrow. So I got up early. It is 10:18. You guys, you have no idea what I have done this morning, okay? I've done face stuff. I did eye things for my eyes. I made coffee. I took the dogs out. I've been like putting sheets in the washing machine and doing laundry. And I'm like getting ready to go get my hair cut and then take the dogs to the kennel, which we call the hotel. I already filmed a video for one of my other channels. I've started my vlog already. I have been up today and doing it. So this is kind of Peter. I haven't had a whole lot of coffee. I made my own coffee in the Keurig. This is kind of Peter without coffee. I know people are always like, oh, like you must have had so much caffeine or whatever. You know, it's interesting because I think we get certain things from, you know, like one parent or the other. I don't know, genetically maybe, but one of the things I definitely got from my dad is that like when I'm up, I'm up. And whether that's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like when I am up, I'm up, like for the day. And my dad was always like that. Now my dad goes to bed super early. I mean, he still goes, he's always, my dad's in bed by like 8 o'clock and he's up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and he like goes and does like, my dad is like in his late 70s and he is still every day like just like going and going and going, you know? You would never know if you met him that he was in his late 70s. You'd think my dad was like, you know, in his 60s. Like it probably is early to mid 60s. But anyway, so I don't know. I think I get that from my dad, you know, that I'm just like, I get up and I'm going and going and going, which would make sense for me to go to bed early and get up early, right? Because I would get so much accomplished. But the thing is, I'm like, well, I like to stay up late at night. I'm a night owl. I enjoy being up at night. And I get just as much accomplished in a shorter amount of time. So anyway, let me have a sip of coffee first. It is a beautiful day outside. It is blue. I showed it on my vlog. It's blue skies, but it's a little chilly outside today. So I have 3 books picked out over here. The dogs are eating their treats. I just took them outside. I'm sure they will be over here in a moment. These are the 4 that I'm not going to read today unless we run out of time for some reason. But I picked one from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations. We're going to read March 5th from that. And then we're going to read March 5th from Daily Affirmations for Forgiving and Moving On by T. and Dayton, PhD. Powerful Inspiration for Personal Change. Here comes Tucker. And the first book that I want to read from, and this was actually my mom's, and it has her sponsor's name in it, which I think is really interesting. Anyway, that's a whole other story about my mom's sponsor and how I met her and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, we're going to read from Seek Sobriety, Find Serenity, Thoughts for Every Day. And this is a really, really great meditation book, if you've never seen it. Rabbi Abraham Twersky is really well known when it comes to the recovery community, and he's written so many books about recovery. And, you know, I don't even know if he's still alive or not anymore. But he has done so many things. You know, he's done, he came up, I think, with like the family model and all this kind of stuff. And you can get on YouTube, I'm sure, and look at like speaking engagements that he's done, and he's just really, really well known within the recovery community. So today's vlog is, or today's vlog, I'm losing it. Today's meditation is, we are responsible for our recovery. And the reason that I wanted to read this from this book, which honestly in my personal life, I don't read a lot from either. If I read a recovery meditation book, I typically read 24 hours a day. Which if you're sober, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, you know, I was like, I talk so much about being sober and sobriety over here that I thought that, like, just if I'm going to read 3 meditations, I could throw one in that has to do with sobriety, you know? And then maybe kind of just give my 2 cents about things. And I think this is an important topic. And it's something, actually, that we talk a lot about on social media with celebrities and things like that. And, you know, I often have my own personal feelings or whatever about that. And I kind of stay silent sometimes because that's just my experience, but I thought that this was a good meditation for some of that. And I think for our families and spouses and friends that are sober, to help those of you out there that are not sober, as well as of those of you that are sober. But I do think this is just a reminder for those of us who are sober. I think most of us know this already. March 5th, we are responsible for our recovery. While addictions are diseases, this does not exonerate anyone from errant behavior while under the influence of chemicals. The addicted person is not responsible for being an addict. Many people drink alcohol, but all do not become alcoholics. And some people experiment with drugs, but they do not become addicted. By analogy, many people indulge in sweets, yet they do not become diabetic. While there are obviously many differences in these conditions, the common feature is that, for the addict, something happens within the body that results in the specific symptoms of each disease. While we don't know all the causes, we do know that there are genetic and biochemical factors over which people have no control. Just as we do not think of the diabetic as responsible for her disease, neither should we hold the addict responsible for the abnormality that results in reaction to these chemicals. However, just as diabetics must be responsible for taking their insulin or any other treatment, so addicts must be responsible for their treatment, including abstinence. As one person with many years of sobriety stated, I may not be responsible for my disease, but I am fully responsible for my recovery. And what that means is that the fact that I am an alcoholic or an addict, okay, and many of you know that I do believe in a predisposition for that, a genetic predisposition. But I also believe that it can be a learned behavior for people as well, you know? And I think it can be one or the other or a little bit of both. And I very, very much believe that it is a disease. You know, it's a disease as classified by the American Medical Association. And when people want to argue with me on that, I'm like, so if you went to your doctor and your doctor said that you had what looks like a physical disease, and you would say, but I don't believe that's a disease, you wouldn't say that. I mean, this is like one of the only diseases where people really want to argue over it. But at the end of the day, and let me make this very clear, I don't get in arguments with people over whether or not they believe it's a disease. I don't really care if people believe that it's a disease or not. It really doesn't change anything for me. The fact that it's a disease and the disease concept and the disease model of addiction, okay, really only helps me in my recovery today. I am hoping to maybe get my story out there, or I'm hoping for other people to get their story out there, or for all of us to join together just to save lives. That's all I really care about. I don't really care how we get there. You know, like, I mean, it's like if we're all trying to meet up in Las Vegas, I don't care if you get there by plane, I don't care if you get there by train, car, motorcycle, bicycle, walk, whatever. I don't care how you get there. Let's just get there. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm at with the whole sobriety thing is, I want to save lives, okay? Not me personally, but all of us out there. I don't really care what gets us there, you know? If you don't believe in the disease, but you're willing to do what it takes to set limits and boundaries for the person in your life that's an addict or an alcoholic, more power to you. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to all be on the same page for that. But I think that one thing that we do need to all be on the same page for is that, you know, while I am not, and I can only speak of my experience, you know, responsible for having a disease, like, I can't, you know, like, I can't, if it truly is genetic, and I truly believe in the disease concept, which is why I'm bringing it up, I can't do anything about that. Like, I can't change that, right? But now that I have that knowledge, and now that I know that when I pick up a drink or I pick up a drug, something different happens in me than happens in other people, Tucker's about to jump over here, then I am responsible for what I put into my body and what I do. I am responsible for going to meetings, having a sponsor, having a therapist, going to church if that's what gets me sober. You know, I am responsible for working a program. I'm responsible for doing all of those things that are going to get me better, right? I can't blame that on somebody else. I can't say, well, I went to those meetings, you know? I went to those classes, they didn't help me at all. How much did you put into it, you know? I was always told you'll get out of what you put into it, you know? Maybe try some different meetings, that's what I was told. Or maybe meetings aren't for you, you know? Maybe go to a counselor, maybe try church, maybe try, I don't know, try something, you know what I mean? There's a million things out there. There's a million different books on a million different philosophies. And just because I work a 12-step program, it doesn't mean it's the only one. Care enough about your own life to do something about it. You know, I think most of us, when we are in that horrible place of active addiction, we don't care enough about our lives, you know? But if I've gotten to the point where I am sober, okay, it is nobody else's responsibility but my own. I cannot blame it on anybody else. If I go back out there and I pick up, I can't blame it on anybody else if I'm not doing what I need to do. And there's a saying that I think it needs to be said, okay? And it's something that has really helped me in my sobriety as far as working with other people and my own sobriety is that I can't get somebody else drunk and I can't keep them sober. Do you need to hear me say that again? I can't get somebody else drunk and I can't keep them sober. And what that means is, I can't, if somebody else doesn't want to drink or use a drug, I can't force them to, okay? I mean, like, sure, you know, like tie him down and all, listen, okay, in that kind of fantasy world. But I can't get somebody to drink that doesn't want to. I don't have that kind of power over somebody else. And likewise, if somebody doesn't want to get sober, and if you have been out there, and listen, if love were enough, you know, it's like, have you ever seen those sayings where, I think somebody sent me this for PP, when PP passed. It was like, if love were enough, you know, they'd still be here. You know, it's the same thing with addicts. You know, people always say to me all the time, why couldn't they just stop for me? Why couldn't they just stop for me? And I'm like, please. Like, you know what? If love were enough, no addict and alcoholic would use and hurt their families that way. We don't really even know at the time how much damage that we're doing to people. We really don't. We really don't. I had no clue. Listen, I've shared this story on here before. I read Beautiful Boy a couple years ago. I didn't know my dad had read it when it first came out. And if you don't know what Beautiful Boy is, it's by David Sheff, and his son is an addict. And it's the story, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful story of his son, Nick Sheff, who has also written several books, and his methamphetamine addiction. But he's addicted to all kinds of stuff. And it's about him being a young kid and growing up, and the story of their life basically together. I was like, is my neighbor playing music this early in the morning? And I'm like, no, it's the truck going down the street. But it's a beautiful book, right? And when I got done reading it, I was like, was my dad really affected like this by me? Oh, it's the trash man. I forgot the trash man, trash woman, the trash people. They're coming to pick up the trash. I forgot it was trash day. But you know, I was like, did my dad, was he really affected like this? And I remember I called my dad and I said, you know, have you read this book? He's like, yeah, I read it when it first came out. I was like, how did you hear about it? And he was like, I don't know, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, something like that. And he said, I said, well, was it really that bad for you? He goes, oh yeah, that's exactly what it was like. And I had no idea how much fear I had instilled in my father, you know? So, you know, I think like if love were enough to get the addict or an alcoholic sober, I don't know, it's why, and I talked about this on my vlog the other night, so I'm not gonna, you know, like beat it with a dead horse, or beat it like a dead horse, but like, you know, for me, it's why, and I think people misunderstand when I say this, I don't judge anybody that doesn't want to work a 12-step program, okay? I know people that it took literally years to go to a meeting. I know people that don't want to go to counseling and they don't believe in it. I understand that. I know, I don't go to church, so I understand other people that don't want to go to church, okay? But this is what scares me, is when you're an addict or an alcoholic out there and you take away the drug or the drink, okay? You have a huge empty part. We did not become alcoholics and addicts overnight. Like, and there are things that we have built up and people we have hurt over the years, and it's like there's a lot, right? So to just take the drink or the drug away means we're dry, okay? And there's no emotional sobriety there. We aren't really living the full lives that we could be living. There's a lot of anger, resentment, sadness. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And until you work on that, things are not going to get better. To me, it's not about like, well, I'm more sober than you. I could care less about that. I want people to be happy, joyous, and free. And however they get there, right? And that's what it always is about me. I don't care if they work a 12-step program. I really don't. But do something. Because if you don't, you're going to eventually pick up one of these days, because you haven't worked on that stuff that was inside, which was the reason why you used anyway, and the stuff that happened after you started using that you caused to happen in your life. We got to work on that stuff, you know? So it makes me sad. But I could talk about this all day long. I'm probably, in my life, the one thing I am the most passionate about is addiction and recovery, period, end of story. I mean, it has been my life source for 25 plus years, you know? And really 12 years before that when I was using. And I'm so just passionate about it. And saving lives. And saving lives to me doesn't just mean keeping somebody with their blood pumping and their brain going, okay? Saving lives to me means having somebody have the best life possible. Because there's a lot of people out there that aren't using a drug or drink and they're dying inside. They really are, you know? I've known quite a few people to die within the rooms of 12-step programs because they weren't working on themselves. And nobody knew. And it breaks my heart. And that scares me for people, you know? All right, let's read the next meditation. Oh my God. Okay. So the next meditation is actually from tomorrow, and it's from, but you'll understand why. It is Daily Affirmations for Forgiving and Moving On, Powerful Inspiration for Change by T.N. Dayton, PhD. And it is Life is an Adventure. And since I'm going to Phoenix tomorrow, I thought, well, this is a very apropos meditation. So, Life is an Adventure, March 6th. Today I remind myself that life is an adventure. There are no guarantees that anything will turn out as expected. My best laid plans are turned upside down in an instant if life so chooses. Life is constant change. The things that I expected to go one way go another. Even if the outside of my life appears stable, there is a constant subtle movement. This isn't exactly what I thought when I was gonna pick this one up. I thought it was gonna be about traveling the world, but it's not. Anyway, even if the outside of my life appears stable, there is a constant subtle movement. Times that are very different, tasks and jobs that change with the years, passages that I go through as I age. If I regard life as an adventure, perhaps I will try less hard to clench it in my fist, and I will hold it with a more open hand. My codependency tells me that every time something in my life changes, I'm also going to be somehow different. I identify with a stable place within, and not in the things around me. I can adjust to change without losing myself. Life is what happens to you when you're making other plans. John Lennon. Okay, get emotional there for a little bit. My mom loved John Lennon, and I put a Beatles quote on her gravestone because my mom loved the Beatles so much. And so anyway, life is an adventure, you know. And I have to say, like, I shared this on here not too long ago. You know what it really hit me was after I got sober and I had gone back to college, and I remember going to, when you start going to meetings, I've been talking a lot about meetings in here, but you kind of get used to meeting new people. Like, even if it's not comfortable for you, which it's not for me, and I always walk in the room with my head down the door. I don't so much today, but I did back then, did for a long time. But you start getting used to meeting new people, and you realize that new people, old friends are great. You know, don't ever get rid of your old friends, but meeting new people are doorways literally to new lives because you're exposed to new things and new adventures and whatever. And so I had met a lot of new people through, you know, going to meetings. And I remember starting school like that summer one. I think I took summer one classes. And because I didn't take the spring semester, so it would have been summer one when I went in. And I was like, I can remember going to class, which I ended up, this is so bad. I ended up meeting a guy and starting to date him. Aw, Todd. I found out a couple years ago he had passed away. And, you know, it's weird. Well, that's a whole other story. I should tell that story on here. I have told that story, I think, on here. I did it in a vlog. But, like, he was always kind of the guy in the back of my head that I thought I would end up with. He was, like, kind of, I mean, truly, truly, like, the love of my life. And he was in a band, and he played bass, and he wrote a song called St. Peter about, I mean, it was just, it was magical, you know? But he had so many issues of his own, addiction issues. And, but he was a wonderful, wonderful person. And so we met in that class. But I remember going into that class. It was a film studies class. And I remember going into that class. And he had curly, curly, curly hair. Dark curly hair. And he wore these little round rimmed glasses. And I remember he always wore like green. And he smelled like Woodland from Bath and Body Works. But that doesn't matter. So anyway. I mean, it matters, but it's not for this story. But I remember going into like those classes that first day and being like, who am I gonna meet today? Who am I gonna meet today? Like, something could happen today that would profoundly change my life for the positive, right? And so every day I kind of look at life that way. I'm like, what is gonna happen today? What opportunity is gonna present itself to me? What magical thing is going to happen today that's going to like profoundly affect my life for the positive? Like, something today, like, I will meet somebody will say something to me, something will happen today that profoundly changes my life for the positive, you know? And you have to think about that way. Think about that every day. Life is an adventure, you know? And if you think about it that way, then you're kind of waiting. You're kind of like, okay, where is it at? Where is it at? And then if you look back and you do like inventory over your day, you're like, oh, did I miss it? Okay, maybe it was something small that I didn't even realize. And then you start looking at the magic of your day. So anyway, I think that's where I'm gonna end it. I've gone on. This is an 18-minute vlog, or I keep on saying vlog, 18-minute meditation video today. So let me know. Oh, being in the moment. I'm gonna practice. I just like was going through here and it said being in the moment. I'm gonna practice being in the moment. I love you. I'm gonna go get my hair cut. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.